All right, so get ready to go from zero to a trillion-dollar company practically overnight in the time it takes to boot up your computer.
Sounds intriguing.
Right. Today's deep dive, we're taking you inside the fascinating and sometimes, let's be honest, kind of controversial world of Nvidia.
Nvidia, huh? I'm intrigued.
You probably know them for their, gaming GPUs, right?
Yeah, that's what I mostly think of, at least initially.
Yeah, trust me, there's a much bigger story here.
Okay, you piqued my interest.
Exactly. We've got a stack of sources to unpack today.
Lay it on me.
We're talking everything from their surprisingly scrappy beginnings, Denny's anyone.
Denny's? Wait, hold on. Are we seriously talking about...
All the way to becoming this Wall Street darling. We're talking Nvidia's Wikipedia page, some pretty serious stock analysis, even a peek behind the curtain at their production plans for that elusive Blackwell AI chip.
Okay, you're right. That's way more than just gaming.
Exactly. And
No.
to really understand how we got here, I think we got to go back to where it all began.
Sounds good to me. Take it from the top.
So, imagine, if you will, it's 1993, right? The internet is still kind of finding its feet.
The good old dial-up days.
And three friends are huddled in a Denny's, dreaming of a future powered by graphics.
Wait, back up a second. Did you say Denny's?
You heard right.
As in, the Grand Slam breakfast Denny's?
The one and only.
That's where Nvidia was born.
That's the story.
You're kidding.
I'm dead serious. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, Curtis Priem.
Oh, okay, I know the names.
The founders of Nvidia really did hash out their vision over coffee and, probably pancakes.
Talk about humble beginnings, wow. But their vision, though, was anything but ordinary.
Oh, absolutely not. They were betting big on graphics processing at a time when, get this, over 70 other companies were all vying for a piece of the same pie.
70? Seriously?
That's what I'm saying. It was a crowded field.
That's a lot of competition.
Talk about a risky move, right?
But what made them think they could stand out from that crowd?
That's the thing. They believed in the power of what's called, get ready for it, accelerated computing.
Accelerated computing.
Yeah, and specifically using GPUs,
okay.
graphics processing units, to handle more than just, graphics.
So not just making things look pretty on a screen.
Exactly. They saw the potential for GPUs to revolutionize, all sorts of computing tasks.
Interesting. But those early days, though, I've got to imagine, those were pretty precarious for a young company.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, their Wikipedia page, it even mentions their motto at the time.
Their motto? What was it? Go big or go home?
Even better, our company is 30 days from going out of business.
Whoa. 30 days from going out of business. You're not kidding when you say they were scrappy? They were on the verge of disappearing before they even really got started?
They almost did.
Really?
How so?
Remember the Sega Dreamcast?
Vaguely, yeah. It was a gaming console, right?
Yeah, it was Sega's answer to the PlayStation.
Okay, right. I remember now. So Nvidia, they made a big bet on the Dreamcast, but it was a new technology, something called Get Ready Quadrilateral Primitives. And it backfired.
Backfired, yeah.
The technology, it just wasn't ready for prime time. And the Dreamcast, well, let's just say it didn't exactly set the world on fire.
I see. So where does that leave Nvidia? Back to those 30 days?
They were up against the ropes, absolutely. But that's when Sega's president, Shuichiro Irimajiri, he saw their potential, even when their own technology kind of failed them, and he threw them a lifeline.
How much are we talking here?
A cool $5 million investment. And that right there, that was a turning point.
Wow, so they dodged a bullet with that Sega deal. They went from almost bankrupt to, what are they now? A company worth more than Apple and Microsoft combined? Yeah. How did they pull that off?
It's a classic tale of resilience and I think recognizing opportunity.
What do you mean?
Well, after that near miss with Sega, they shifted gears, right?
Okay.
They started focusing on the power of, and get ready for it again, triangle primitives.
Triangle primitives. Hold on. Wasn't it the quadrilaterals that were the problem?
Exactly. But see, triangle primitives, they were becoming the industry standard.
So Nvidia, they were smart enough to adapt.
They realized they had to go where the market was going, not where they thought it should go.
Makes sense.
And the result, the RVA 128, a graphics card that put them on the map.
The RVA 128, so that was their big break.
It was definitely a pivotal moment. It caught the attention of not just gamers, but crucially, PC manufacturers.
So they were no longer just this niche player. They were going mainstream.
Exactly. And they rode that wave of, tech enthusiasm, went public in 1999, right in the middle of the dot-com boom. Then came the GeForce.
GeForce. Now, That is a name I know. Even I, a casual gamer at best, I know GeForce. They were everywhere.
Everywhere. And it wasn't all smooth sailing, though, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's more to the story. What kind of bumps in the road are we talking about?
Well, let's just say they made some, shall we say, interesting business decisions along the way.
Interesting is one word for it.
They were known to be aggressive. For example, they acquired their rival, a company called 3DBDX.
3DVFX, okay.
I don't think I know them. They were a big deal in the graphics card world back in the day. Anyway, Nvidia acquiring them, it solidified their dominance in the graphics market.
So they were playing hardball from the get-go.
No doubt about it. But they didn't stop there. They even went toe-to-toe with, well, Intel.
Intel, as in the king of CPUs? Intel.
The one and only.
What were they fighting about?
Well, Intel, they launched their own line of graphics cards, and, well, let's just say Nvidia didn't take too kindly to that.
I bet they didn't. So this is all still very much centered around gaming, though, right? When does the whole AI revolution come into play? Because that seems to be where the real NVIDIA story unfolds, at least from what I've been reading.
You are spot on. To really grasp NVIDIA's current standing, we got to talk about AI.
Let's do it.
And to do that, we got to talk about CUDA.
CUA. Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, CUDA. So, refresh my memory here. What was CUDA all about again?
So CDA, it stands for Compute Unified Device Architecture.
Catchy.
Right. But it's essentially, think of it as a platform that allows developers to use, well, NVIDIA's GPUs, but for general purpose processing, not just graphics.
Okay, so not just for making my video games look pretty.
Exactly. This was a game changer, really, because it opened up this whole new world of possibilities for things like scientific computing and, crucially, artificial intelligence.
So their gaming hardware inadvertently paved the way for them to dominate in AI.
You got it. Funny how that happens, huh?
It's kind of ironic when you think about it.
It really is. It just goes to show you how innovation in one area, it can have these unexpected ripple effects, you know?
Totally. So suddenly you've got these GPUs that were, what, rendering stunning graphics in games, and now they're being used to train complex AI models.
Exactly. And we're not talking, small potatoes here. Andrew Enney, a real pioneer in the field of deep learning, he found that using NVIDIA's GPUs, well, it could make that whole training process, get this, up to 100 times faster.
Okay, wait, 100 times? Seriously?
No, seriously, 100 times faster.
That's like going from, I don't know, a horse and buggy to a supersonic jet.
It's a pretty apt analogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's no wonder everyone from Tesla to Google suddenly started banging on NVIDIA's door.
I bet. But this is still pretty early days for AI, right? Like, when did things really explode?
Well, you have to think about the rise of deep learning, right?
Deep learning, okay.
Which is essentially a type of AI that relies very heavily on processing these massive, and I mean massive, data sets.
Okay, so big data.
Exactly. And guess what? NVIDIA's GPUs, they were practically purpose-built for that kind of parallel processing.
Ah, so they were in the right place at the right time with the right technology.
Bingo. Talk about hitting the tech jackpot.
Right. It's like they went from, what was it, Grand Slam breakfast to...
A champagne and caviar.
Exactly. From gaming graphics to, practically overnight powering the AI revolution.
It's a wild ride for sure.
Speaking of wild rides, remember those articles you shared about NVIDIA becoming $1 trillion company? I mean, that's insane.
It's mind-boggling, for sure. But a lot of that growth, you can trace it directly back to this insatiable demand for their AI chips.
Particularly like the H100, right?
The H100, oh yeah, the one that Elon Musk and Larry Ellison were practically like brawling over.
Weren't those things shipping in like armored cars at one point? What's the deal with that?
Well, when you have something that valuable, right, and in such high demand, security, it becomes paramount.
I guess so. But armored cars? For computer chips, it sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy, but it just speaks to how crucial those chips had become.
Especially with like this whole explosion of those large language models.
Exactly. LLMs, as they're known.
LLMs, right? Like, is ChatGPT one of those?
ChatGPT, Google's Bard, even Elon Musk's Grok, they're all powered by LLMs.
Yeah.
And training those LLMs, well, it requires an enormous amount of processing power.
The kind of power that only those high-end GPUs can provide.
You got it. And that's where NVIDIA comes in. They're not just about gaming anymore, you see. They're now this critical part of the AI infrastructure that's, well, it's reshaping the world.
It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is. But as with everything in tech, it can't be all smooth sailing.
Yeah,
right?
That's what they say. What challenges are we talking about here?
Well, remember those analysts raising concerns about, an AI bubble?
Oh, yeah. Is that something we should be worried about?
Well, it's tricky. It's not a simple yes or no answer. One of those articles you shared, I think it was titled, "Is NVIDIA Still a Millionaire Maker Stock?" it really digs into this whole bubble question.
What's the verdict?
Well, it argues that while the demand for AI is huge, right? Actually turning that demand into profit, that's the tricky part.
Ah, okay. So, like, Chat GPT, right?
Right.
Millions of people are using it, sure. But how many are actually paying for the premium version?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then you've got these like open source AI models, like Meta's Llama, gaining traction,
Open source meaning?
meaning they're free to use, which could potentially start to chip away at the dominance of those big, expensive LLMs that rely on NVIDIA's hardware.
I see. So it's not a guaranteed win for NVIDIA.
It's way too early to say how we'll all shake out, honestly, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so we've got a potential AI bubble. What else? Didn't some of the articles mention something about, like, production problems?
You're right, they did. It seems even NVIDIA, they aren't immune to those supply chain issues we've been hearing so much about.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, there were reports of a design flaw that was affecting the production of that new Blackwell chip, the one everyone's so excited about.
Wait, hold on. The chip everyone and their mother is drooling over. That chip has a flaw.
It does. Apparently, there was a mismatch in something called the coefficient of thermal expansion.
The coefficient of thermal what now? In English, please.
Right, sorry. Basically, it means that different materials, they expand and contract at different rates when they heat up or cool down.
Okay, that makes sense. I remember that from, like, high school physics or something.
It's a well-known phenomenon for sure. But in the case of the Blackwell chip, this difference, this expansion and contraction, it was causing, get this, microscopic cracks in the chips.
And that's a bad thing.
Well, these chips are so incredibly complex that even a tiny flaw can render the entire thing, well, useless.
So how big of a problem is this for NVIDIA? Like, are they going to be able to meet the demand for these chips, or are we all going to be waiting for years?
It's definitely a setback, no doubt about it. Yields, and by yields I mean the number of usable chips they can produce, they've been way lower than they were hoping.
And what does that mean for, like, their bottom line? Are those trillion-dollar dreams starting to fade a bit?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I think it was Morgan Stanley analysts that estimated they'd still produce a pretty significant number of those Blackwell GPUs in the fourth quarter, maybe even enough to bring in over $10 billion in revenue.
Okay, so not exactly chump change.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But it's still likely far less than what they could have sold if, production was running at 100%.
So we've got production hiccups, we've got this potential AI bubble looming over everything. And to top it all off, didn't NVIDIA also have some, let's call it, controversy swirling around them? Weren't they accused of some shady business practices?
Ah, you're right. They haven't exactly been immune to controversy. Their meteoric rise, let's just say it's attracted a bit of scrutiny, and there have definitely been some bumps in the road.
Like what? Refresh my memory here.
Well, there was that whole thing with their GeForce partner program, for example.
Oh, right. That was the thing where they were accused of, like, trying to muscle out AMD, their main competitor in the GPU space.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That's a bit of an oversimplification.
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, there were concerns that the program, it was designed in a way that would, limit competition, give NVIDIA an unfair advantage.
And then there was that whole dust up with hardware unboxed, wasn't there?
Ah, yes. The hardware unboxed controversy. That was back in, I think it was 2020, when NVIDIA threatened to stop providing, those early review samples to Hardware Unboxed because they felt like the reviews, they weren't focusing enough on ray tracing.
Ray tracing. That was that new technology NVIDIA was pushing at the time, right?
For one and only.
Which, you have to admit, it does look awfully suspicious, right? Like, they were trying to silence anyone who didn't sing the praises of ray tracing.
Yeah, definitely raised some eyebrows.
It felt very, like, anti-competitive,
It sparked a broader conversation, that's for sure, about transparency and fairness in the whole tech review space.
So yeah, not exactly squeaky clean, this NVIDIA. It seems like this whole success story, it has a few blemishes after all, huh?
Well, it's a good reminder that even the most innovative, the most successful companies, they're still run by people at the end of the day.
And people can be messy.
Exactly. But it also, I think, underscores the importance of accountability, especially as companies like NVIDIA, they amass more and more power and influence.
Okay, so let's recap here. We've got potential production issues, we've got this whole market volatility thing, and, some ethical questions swirling around. What does all of this mean for NVIDIA's future? Are they still the unstoppable force they once seemed?
That is the question, isn't it? And I'm afraid the answer is it's far from clear. But despite these challenges, you got to remember, Nvidia is still a powerhouse. And they're not just sitting back, resting on their laurels either. They're constantly innovating and expanding into new areas.
Okay, so they've got their challenges, no doubt, but they're also, pushing ahead with new technologies.
Yes.
What are some of the areas they're exploring? What's next for NVIDIA?
Well, one that really jumps out is their move into CPUs.
CPUs?
Yeah.
Like, wait, aren't that the GPU peak?
I know, right? But they've got this project. It's called Grace. And it's all about, remember we were talking about Intel earlier, the longtime king of CPU?
Yeah, the undisputed champ, for sure.
Well, NVIDIA's decided they want to get in on that action, too.
Wow. So are they going head-to-head with Intel now?
It's a bold move, that's for sure. They're designing their own ARM-based CPUs.
Hold on, ARM-based. Like the chips in, like smartphones and stuff?
Exactly.
What's the logic there?
Well, it's all about efficiency and, power consumption.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Smaller chips, less power.
Exactly. ARM-based chips, they're known for being, incredibly power efficient, which is becoming more and more important as we're, demanding more and more from our computers, especially in, data centers running those massive AI models.
Right, you got to keep those energy bills down.
So NVIDIA going up against Intel. Talk about a David and Goliath scenario.
It's a tough fight, that's for sure. I mean, Intel, they're a formidable competitor. They've got decades of experience, tons of resources.
Yeah, it's not like NVIDIA can just waltz in and take over, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. But here's the thing. I think NVIDIA, they're playing a different game here. They're not just trying to, replace Intel in that whole traditional computing space, you know? They're aiming to own the future of, AI infrastructure by controlling both the CPUs and the GPUs.
We can go. It's about that vertical integration, you see.
Ah, okay. So they want to be a one-stop shop.
Precisely. If they can offer both CPUs and GPUs, they become the go-to for anyone building, large-scale AI systems.
Makes sense. So it's a risky bet, but a potentially huge payoff if they can pull it off.
You got it. It's a bold move, for sure. Only time will tell how it all plays out.
Okay, so we've got CPUs on the horizon. What else? Didn't you mention something earlier about the metaverse? What's NVIDIA doing there?
Ah, yes. They're developing this whole platform. It's called Omniverse.
Omniverse, okay.
And essentially, it's a suite of tools and technologies for, building and connecting virtual worlds.
So think like Ready Player One.
Exactly. Think of it as a way to create this, shared, persistent metaverse.
Persistent, so not just you log in and log out. It's always there.
Always there. A place where people can, collaborate, they can design, even, simulate real-world scenarios.
So not just for gaming.
Way beyond gaming. Imagine, architects, right, collaborating on a building design in real time, or engineers. They could be running simulations of a new product before it's even built.
So you're saying, the possibilities are huge.
Huge. It could revolutionize everything from, manufacturing to healthcare, education, you name it.
Wow. Okay, so NVIDIA's betting big on the metaverse, too. It's they're trying to be at the forefront of every major tech trend out there.
And here's the other thing. They're not just building it for themselves.
What do you mean?
Well, they've got this program. It's called Inception. And it's specifically designed to, nurture and support startups that are working in AI.
So they're helping the competition.
In a way, yes. But think about it. If they can get all these AI startups, if they can get them hooked on NVIDIA hardware early on.
That's guaranteed customers for life, potentially.
Exactly. It's a really smart long-term strategy.
It is. Okay, so we've got CPUs, we've got the metaverse, a whole army of AI startups. Anything else we should be watching out for?
One more thing. It's their partnership with, get ready for this, Getty Images.
Getty Images, the stock photo company.
The one and only. Remember we were talking about AI models needing all that training data? Well, Getty Images, they're sitting on this massive library of, high-quality images.
So NVIDIA's, tapping into that gold mine.
You got it. They're working together to develop these generative AI tools that can leverage Getty's massive image library. Think about what that means for, artists, designers, anyone working with visuals.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, so they're everywhere. CPUs, the metaverse, Getty Images. It's NVIDIA's taking over the world.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Fair enough. But it does make you think, doesn't it? All of it, I mean, it does make you stop and really think about what it all means, right? Not just for NVIDIA, but for all of us, for the world.
I think that's what's so fascinating about these deep dives. It's about connecting the dots, figuring out what it all means, why we should care about this stuff.
Exactly.
And we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? I mean, we're talking everything from those humble beginnings in a Denny's to those trillion-dollar valuations.
The controversies, the innovations, the impact on the future of tech.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. But what's the big takeaway here for you?
Well, I think NVIDIA's story, it's a really good reminder that technology, it's never static.
It's constantly changing.
It's constantly evolving, and often in ways that we can't even predict.
So true.
But it also highlights, the incredible power of innovation.
Of daring to dream big.
Exactly. Of pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But, and I think this is important, it also serves as a bit of a cautionary tale, right? A reminder that with great power comes great responsibility.
And that the choices these tech giants make, whether it's Nvidia or, Intel or any of these companies, those choices, they have ripple effects. And those ripples, they can extend far beyond Silicon Valley.
They touch all of us.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of technology.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That is all from us on this deep dive into the world of NVIDIA. Thanks for joining us.